Well, welcome to the epilogue video for the Italian series campaign. Basically, game plan is over. You just get me to pontificate a bit, look around at a few various things, and yeah. So first and foremost, what needs to cannot be understated was the basic strategy I went for was, of course, kind of just mass infantry, but decent quality infantry with artillery, a little bit of AA, a little bit of anti-tank, kind of all around jack of all trades, master of none infantry, but decent quality. We're not just throwing a bunch of guys with nothing but small arms out there. It seemed to hold pretty well, but of course, doing that instead of just a bunch of garrison infantry with nothing but small arms means you've got issues holding. You don't have as many divisions, so you can have issues holding a lot of territory. And with Italy at the beginning, you got multiple fronts. You've got a Western North Africa front, an Eastern North African front, all of East Africa to deal with. Then you got to keep some troops in Italy proper, garrison your islands, garrison the Dodecanese roads over there. I mean, you've got a lot of commitments, even little tiny specks here. Got to hold Albania. And then this game, and obviously we were pivotal this game, just looking at it. Because one, we were not in the driver's seat. We're not Big Daddy Germany. But it was very clear, when Germany was not taking France, that if I did not break France, we were going to get nowhere. So the Mountaineers were a good decision. Sending the infantry over to completely break them there was a good call. I thought about house ruling myself to light tanks only as Italy, and that's probably something I should have done. I didn't. I also thought I was going to be going for tanks a lot earlier, and once again, I just didn't. Main reason because the Air Force, the air war, was severely lacking, so I had to pump a bunch of factories into that. And also, tanks are just freaking expensive when you don't have the factories, because we also were just trying to get our raw division count up, and that took priority over factories, just so we can, much less one, hold the fronts, than two, push another fronts. That's why, down in East Africa, I was alternating, bouncing my troops around between fronts and causing fronts to go static. Even in North Africa, we were ping-ponging back and forth between, Tunisia and, the Alexandria front here to see, where we could crack, the enemies and, just put the bare minimum to hold the enemies from pushing in. So that was a lot of fun. I mean, this probably maybe my most fun playthrough. I know I've said that a few times, but I mean, this one was the most dire playthrough I've ever had where I've turned around and was successful. And you heard me say it so many times because I couldn't believe it. I mean, they were literally 2 tiles from Berlin here. And that was pretty stinking serious. I just realized it took Stalingrad, so they couldn't rename themselves Germania. What the hell, Stalingrad over. There we go. There. But you know what? I will say this is one of the best looking borders, considering how this game goes a lot, I've ever seen. Without that ugliness, it's pretty decent. So, once again, overall strategy: mass infantry, but quality infantry, into eventually a few tanks for break through divisions. The major moment in this game was, of course, when I did my encirclement here in Germany. Pocketed an absolute crap ton of Soviet troops there, and then to relieve the pressure off Berlin. The question I kind of asked myself is, if I didn't have those tanks, because by then I just started to pump out a few medium tank divisions. They weren't very good, but tanks are still tanks, especially mediums. So I really wonder if could I have saved Germany with just infantry? And the short answer is I don't know. I think I probably would have been able to, because I don't think those tanks were particularly decisive, but I might have to go back and look at the video on that just to see, because that was the pivotal moment in this campaign, the battle for Germany. Once Germany was liberated, it basically became a pretty standard Eastern Front game. Probably one of it does remind me of something very cheeky, though. Now, of course, the Soviet invasion of Germany, I knew was happening, but I was dealing with other fronts and trying to wrap up other fronts to be able to commit the troops there. Because last thing I wanted was basically to have just too few troops on every front, and we just get slowly, stuck in a quagmire and ground down. Because of course the Allies have the factory superiority, But most importantly, they've got those, massive AI boosts I give them. And each one of their factories is, probably worth like one and a half of my factories. So, I mean, that's it's a pretty big deal. So, and what I was alluding to a little bit earlier too was I saw a very cheeky game in Hearts of Iron 3, mind you, not 4, but 3, where there was a German player basically just set up his units in a complete U. If you can see my cursor, kind of in Germany. Had a kind of a good force in East Prussia. He just let the Soviets flood in, and then just made a pocket right behind him. And of course, he was intentionally doing this. This wasn't an accident. They had everything set up perfectly, but let him flood in and just absolutely decimated the Soviet army with a massive encirclement. I think it was even a GIF back in the day when people used to make a whole bunch of GIFs. Because I think he took out the Soviets with like maybe 3 or 4 pockets like that. It was just absolutely exceptional play. Of course, the AI, the AI is derpy. Once you learn what the AI does, you can take advantage of certain things. And I really try not to do that. Probably where I took advantage of the AI the most, and I knew I could, and I was a little bit cheesy in doing it. No offense or buts. Was the invasion of Britain. So when I was invading Britain, it was a little bit of it was not quite a head-on invasion. So you saw me, I did go head-on with the fighters for a long time, so it wasn't completely cheesy. But I also invested significant amount of factories in those single-seat fighters to get air superiority. But where the AI is just not good is where, and it's hilarious because the AI likes doing this. The AI likes to bounce around. So if you ever watch like strategic bombers over Germany, they'll sit in a province with all their bombers until you put up some air, and then they'll bounce to a province with less, and they'll just keep bouncing around unless you kind of got a certain minimum number of fighters up to challenge them, and then they'll stop. But so they're very good at bouncing around. But here, we had the massive fight in the English Channel, and then when it was actual invasion time, I of course took everything out of the English Channel and said, okay, get over here in, I guess, northern England and southern England. They've since this game first came out, I think they've redone the air zones a bit here in England. And I think they used to just have 2, basically, England and Scotland, if I remember right. Could be wrong. But the AI just took forever to pick up on that and move their air over. Because they were just sitting on an absolute insane amount of fighters, and they should have been able to, tear me a new asshole, and they didn't. Of course, my fighters, because I'm a human, are designed a little bit better than theirs. Extra agility, extra speed. Not doing things to slow them down. And really committing my points to upgrading them, pretty efficiently. And especially upgrading what matters on the fighters and which fighters matters. I didn't bother to do my bombers until I knew my fighters were going to be top notch. Why? Because air supremacy is key. If you don't have air supremacy and you want to be using bombers, it's not worth it. Your bombers just don't do shit. So that's why you got to invest so heavily into the fighters first, as a precursor to any serious bombing campaigns. But yeah. Just looking at England, failing, really failing, screwing the pooch there, because they had the better airfield situation than me over Great Britain. So they should have been able to, ideally react when I did that big switch on them, move all their stuff there. Sure, I would have a slight time window, but then I, get in there, pretty quickly. They took several days to move it. And then even then, I still controlled the air zone in northern England. And, in southern England was a little too hotly contested. But, yeah. I was kind of surprised I was able to pull that off as easily as I did. Not to pat myself on the back, but you saw me prepping the Amtracs, and then eventually going into the amphibious tanks. With the drive shaft there, the propeller drive shaft, just because I thought I was going to need them to take England, especially if I was going to have to go head on for any of the port provinces. But I got lucky. Lucky and no, I wouldn't say lucky. Let me think on that. Part of the AI, the way they defend is they don't defend every province, when it comes to naval invasion. They will, defend the port provinces and sometimes exceedingly way too much on defense on the port provinces and nothing in provinces that help it. and supported by being on the flanks. So of course I went after Cardiff and Bristol, and then I had little secondary invasions on this, Swansea here, and then this province which is unnamed in between Bristol and Cardiff. So, because if I have just attacked with those infantry, which were not, they were, for being pure infantry, they were pretty good at naval assaulting. They really had better stats than I thought they would. But part of the key I was landing was, of course, the bombers helping. But then what really turned the tide was when we had troops land uncontested, and once again Swansea in that province between Bristol and Cardiff, because then they're able to come in full strength, attack no problem. Then a little bit of air supply really helped too, just to make sure they're attacking at full strength like that. I was, after something like that, it makes me really wonder how much necessary, how necessary amphibious units really are. In certain contexts, like the Pacific, when you're island hopping, where there's, you want a specific island, there's no problem to land next to it and just do that same stunt I did. Of course, you need, units that are pretty good at it. But I was really surprised it worked as well as it did. I just did not think it would happen. It was worth it to give it a shot, because in this game, and I kind of disagree with it, but it's just how the game works. When you do a naval invasion, and say it fails, you don't make landfall. You have to retreat. You don't take super crazy heavy casualties like you would normally think you would. The rest of your division retreats rather than, hey, we're dumping everybody on the shore. This is go time, and if you fail to attack, you're all dead. There's no cataclysmic consequences for failing a naval invasion, like I would argue there would be historically. When you get dumped on that beach, you're dumped on that beach. Either you get off the beach through the enemy or you die. Especially looking at a situation like Omaha, during the Overlord landings. So yeah, that was definitely the defining moment, the second defining moment, I should say. The first defining moment, of course, was the Battle of Germany and saving Germany. Second defining moment was the naval landings being successful here, and then once these naval landings were successful, I just did the same stunt here, even though I ended up losing. Actually, I don't think I lost. A bunch of the divisions successfully did not land on Newfoundland, but the secondary landing over here, they marched around, hit them in the back, that was the end of it. Once it worked in Britain, where, it's fairly compact, there's, for how many troops the U.S. had and Britain, and most of them were stocked up here, I was definitely worried because they can reinforce a lot faster. And we saw, in some of the ports down here, they're like 10, 15, 20 divisions in a lot of these big cities. So if I'd gone after Dover with like level 5 coastal forts, yeah, I would have been screwed. Especially doing what I was doing. But just the choice of location was the key part of why that invasion succeeded. I probably could have done the same thing over here in the eastern portion. The only problem is the farther I go north, the less range I have with air cover. So this might be my new favorite spot of invading, because everything else has some coastal forts, except here. Of course, having the sea supremacy was a big deal. Yeah, submarines still slap. I mean, with Tier 3 submarines, I was absolutely running amok. Also, we used our air cover effectively. I didn't do, any super cheese strats where, I've got 1.5 million naval bombers, and yes, of course, the British fleet sinks because they can't contend with 1.5 million naval bombers. Built them at a decent rate, they're useful, use them to good effect, but wasn't anything terribly corny there. Ultimate surprise moment of this series, Switzerland decided to, join the Allies and just go ham on me, or try to. Never saw that coming in a million years. I've never seen Switzerland declare war in any Hearts of Iron, or any Hearts of Iron, period. Not just Hearts of Iron 4, Hearts of Iron game. So that was surprising. I don't know if that's because I didn't have troops on the border and the AI did a calculation of, hey, fuck this guy, he doesn't have troops on the border, let's go for it, or what. Obviously we wrapped that one up pretty easily because it's freaking Switzerland. They're asking for it. Germany this game did half decent. They obviously could not break France on their own. That was Germany's major problem. And yeah, if I left Germany to their own devices against the Soviet Union, yes, they would be dead. Um, the main issue with the AI being it just broad front pushes like this is World War One with the battle planner system. It does not do encirclements. So if you know how to do encirclements, you got the troops to do encirclements. That's the key part. You've got the troops you need to do the encirclements on the enemy. It is game over. You will win. Why? Because you can just pocket troops, and the AI will not for the most part. The only time, I guess it's more horrifying if the AI is kicking your ass because then they're doing broad front. It just means you do not have the troops you need. Period. Because they're not even using exceptional, operational strategy there. They're just they're just beating your face in, with a bunch of shit in a sock, basically, just coming straight at you. No finesse, nothing. Just brute, raw strength is what's overcoming you, which is a little bit frightening. What else? Should have probably gone up north here, picked up a few Soviet VPs faster. I always kind of underestimate how much it's going to take for the Soviet Union to capitulate, because it just kind of takes forever. U.S. fell. Nah, I think it pretty much fell same time it did in my other campaign that I will not mention. But if you've seen it, you know which one I'm referring to, just so I don't give out spoilers. But yeah, took until California there too. So, alright, well overall, that was a hell of a good campaign. I'm going to have to take a look at my other two series. Currently I've got the British campaign out there, and I've got the Soviet campaign. Of course, I'm racing a little bit against the clock. Not too much, but a little bit against the clock to make sure I can get all those campaigns done before By Blood Alone comes out. Because, of course, the major patches with Paradox games, you need to, if you want to be playing with the new stuff, you can't use any of your old save games just because everything's going to be broken otherwise. So I want to get those two done. On my No Step Back, I basically completed the American campaign, now completed this Italian campaign, and got my Germany one too. So I think that will be it. I don't think I will start any new Hearts of Iron series until after By Blood Alone comes out. I gotta kind of take a look at the timing of things, but my gut is telling me I will probably have just enough time to finish up the other two campaigns, the Soviet and the British one, and then I'll probably wait for the campaign to come out, wait for maybe the first few weeks of patches so there's nothing too screwy, and then I'll have to decide who to start up and where to go from there. So if you're watching this video and you've got some requests of what you'd like to see, if you drop a comment, I will have enough time to see it before that new expansion comes out. So, once again, if you've followed me this entire way, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this game. I mean, I certainly did. I mean, it's rare you get oh shit moments in Hearts of Iron for me. So having that oh shit moment of, wow, this may not happen. We may lose Berlin. Germany may go down here pretty quick. That made this campaign a lot of fun. Because one of the things I kind of hate is when it's obvious that whoever you're watching playing the video game is very good at it. There's never any danger. There's never any risk. There's nothing it's just not that exciting when you're just watching a steamroller happen when you know what consistently is going to happen. This and then that level of excitement really kind of made this series very enjoyable for me. So let me make sure to take a save here, just in case I ever want to come back and theorycraft anything off of here. So end date is June 9th, 1945. Japan, still not done with China though. I gotta say. China's the real MVP. Japan's at 2.3 million casualties against them. Holy shit. Look at those casualties. 12.6 million casualties. God damn. Yeah, and Turkey somehow got involved in this war, and I will never understand how the hell they got involved with the Chinese war here. It just does not make sense to me. I will not pretend it makes sense to me. Shaanxi. Communists lost about 1 million. 6.8 million Chinese casualties. Now I'm curious, how's their manpower? I mean, it's China, it's kind of what they do, but what are you on? They're on limited conscription. God, they still have 2 million in the bank. All right, well, they're not breaking a sweat on manpower, but holy moly. What's Japan at? 2.3 million total. That is one of the bloodiest wars I think I've ever seen. Because I don't know if you're aware, they've changed the balance between China and Japan. I know I've mentioned this multiple times, but if you've not seen some of the other videos, you wouldn't have caught it. Where Japan used to roll China probably in about like 1939, 1940 at the latest. It was the rough balancing. Now they've tweaked it to the point where China does not fall. Unless there's some kind of big intervention from the player in a ways. At least that's what I've seen in several games here. It's kind of consistent, which is, frankly, very good historical balance. Of course, that weakens Japan a bit, quite a bit when it comes to the war against the United States. But that's the other thing, too. On this one, I'm surprised Japan had such a hard time, killing Australia and New Zealand and other things like that, because until I took the Raj, I mean, they were really, really just sucked in with that Chinese war and having major issues. Especially because I sunk the shit out of most of the American fleet and the British fleet. I thought they would just kind of run amok, and because they love just throwing out mass naval invasions. I really thought they were going to take a bunch of Pacific Islands, and I thought I was going to be seeing junk like oh geez, they took that one. I thought I was going to be seeing junk like them trying to invade California or Panama, or at least taking Hawaii or some of the Aleutian Islands or something like that. But of course that did not happen, which I was surprised by. But still, so the sun never sets on the Italian Empire. I think that's how we're going to remember this episode. So once again, thank you for watching. This concludes the epilogue episode. If you enjoy this, I encourage you to take a look at some of the other series I've got going or have completed. I always mark my series as completed, so some people just want to binge it and don't want to wait for new episodes to come out, which I completely understand because I'm that way too. But thank you for watching. See you next time.